Yes, greetings everyone. Pleasure to see you all today. We're just waiting for a few more minutes for everybody else to join. Yes, hello Jay. Hello Sanjay. Hello everyone. We can see familiar names here. Yes, hello Asmadi. Hello Philip. Hello Graham. Yes, Darko, it is quite interesting indeed. It's Hack, hello. So what we're going to talk about today, in advance, I'd say that it's more interesting, not in terms of just us having added a new feature, but in terms of us having added capabilities for working with a new category of data. And we're going to elaborate on that further. Can we make a WhatsApp group for future communications in this domain? Yes, Sanjay, I believe this is something that we can discuss maybe afterwards. Yes, hello, El. Israel, Scotland, Lisbon, Switzerland, Brazil. Great to see you all here. And Cyprus as well. Yes, Dennis, please tell us if we're going to have a recording available for our guests afterwards.
Yeah.
Yes, the recording is going to be available. Mexico, Nigeria, South Africa, India. Great, great. And Turkey. Yes, so we have 62 participants now. So I believe we can start. So for those of you who are new to our company and the sort of community of our customers that is being formed around us, we are Social Links. We are an OSINT software vendor, active from 2015. We develop cutting-edge analytical solutions available for several visualization platforms, as well as our own standalone solution. And the topic of today's webinar will be DNA analysis and open source intelligence, more precisely the correlation of biological data and digital footprint data. And I'm going to briefly introduce Mr. Denis Khromov, our Chief Marketing Officer, responsible for all of our marketing communications. And he will be opening today's session. Yes, so Denis, please say hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Denis Khromov. Thank you for introduction, Ivan. So today I'm going to tell you about a really interesting technique, how to catch a cybercrime using just a tiny DNA sample. So that's a really unique technique, and we are first who actually created it and applied to our product. So actually, welcome to the new era of DNA. And before I start, I would like to say a couple of words about us, who we are, what we do. So actually, we are open source intelligence software provider with headquarters in Amsterdam, and we empowers security professionals and professional investigators with groundbreaking solutions. And already, as Ivan mentioned, our solutions have connectors to Maltigo and I2 as well. We have on-premise solution for national security and for big enterprises with security operations centers. This solution is developed especially for organizations who have really vulnerable data, which has to be stored within the infrastructure. So that's why we have private data storage. And also we have more than 500 different open sources that are already connected to our solutions. We have more than 1,000 of search methods, and we have more than 1.3 billion identities. So please, next slide.
Mm-hmm. Yes, just 1 second.
Yeah, and I would like to start my story with a really prominent case that called Golden State Killer. So this story is about the most dangerous maniac in the history of the United States, and the investigation took more than 40 years to catch a criminal. So that's a huge amount of time. And now I'm telling you how to conduct the similar investigation in several days and how to save 40 years. And I'm telling about this story because this story inspired us to connect public databases to our solution and make this mechanic possible within OSINT solution. So the story about this maniac started in middle 70s in California, and the criminal began with small robberies, including banknotes, coins, jewelry, but in several years, he committed more than 50 rapes and murders. And all these crimes were united by the same behavior, because the killer entered the house, and if they were a man or woman, he tied them up and warned. If he heard any movement, he will kill them both. However, police wasn't able to catch this crime because there were two reasons. First of all, he wore facial masks. As a result, the police wasn't able to create his description. The reason number two, he wore gloves. So there wasn't any fingerprints available, and that's why police wasn't able to catch them. And there was a very interesting fact that all crimes stopped in 1986, and police connected it to the fact that in that year, the first criminal was arrested using DNA profile. And in 2018, the Golden State Killer was finally arrested, and it revealed that it was a former policeman who was pretty experienced and was pretty familiar with search techniques. And actually, he was able to avoid a punishment for 40 years. And this investigation was possible thanks to public open source DNA databases. By running criminals' DNA profile through the DNA database called genmatch.com, investigators were able to create and trace family tree, including Golden State Killer. And finally, they could significantly narrow the search by factoring the age, location, and descriptions. After this, investigators extracted DNA sample from one of the suspects, and finally it led to 100% match with the target profile. And it was just the first case and was just the beginning of a new era of DNA. And now we are entering into new age when no one criminal will avoid punishment, because the adoption of DNA profiling is getting higher every day. And since 2014, the number of consumer DNA tests increase in 6 times. And this dynamic is connected to the decreasing cost of the DNA tests. And as a result, these kind of tests are available across commercial services, and the interest of consumer significantly increased. And now we can see that the number of DNA profiles at the moment more than 25 million in public DNA databases in the United States, and plus 18 million are available in state systems and government closed databases. And there are several applications of commercial services that's detecting genetic diseases, identification of biological relationships, and my favorite one is human curiosity. And I'm talking about the guys who want to know if they have the ancestors of the Vikings. And actually, at the moment, DNA is everywhere. And previously, when DNA technology appeared on the market, you need to have a large blood stain, at least 2 centimeters in diameter, to make a DNA test. But at the moment, you just need 8 human cells to make a DNA test. So that means nobody will avoid punishment, because it's extremely hard to avoid leaving the DNA samples. And here, there are several advantages of DNA profile that are actually available on the market. And first of all, it doesn't require consent, because all the data are available in the public DNA databases. At the same time, you need just 2% of DNA samples to cover the full population of country and of the world, because if you have a DNA sample, you can trace up to 4 generations of ancestors and predecessors. So actually, you can cover all the population. And we created a unique technology, and we connected open source databases to our solution. So now you can actually understand and create connections between suspects and our product. And actually, we created a DNA file converter, because in different DNA databases, DNA files have different structure. So using our solution, you can unify this structure, and all this data will be converted. Also, you can use our solution to map a structure, use graphs, and apply different transformations in our product. And I would like to pass the words to Ivan, and he will tell more about how it works and what you can do using our product.
Yes, thank you, Denis, for a brief review of the topic in question. So it is indeed quite interesting. And on the last slide, you've seen a logical schema. And I am going to open my Maltego window now. You can see it recreated here. So the basic idea is to look for the basic idea is that you can pivot from a person's digital footprint into the relations that they have with other people through biological identifiers and biological commonalities, which you can get, for instance, from a DNA upload file. And the resource that we have at this moment is called GEDmatch. It's interesting to note that GEDmatch was exactly the resource that was used by the people who have been investigating the already cold case of the Golden State Killer. And for instance, here we have a number of GEDmatch kit entities. Let's see what kind of data are they connected to in terms of this resource. So at first it extracts the names, and then it gives us more details and the related GEDmatch kits. And now when the transforms are done loading, we will show you how you can pivot further into the digital footprints of those people. If we look into the properties, we will see, in most cases, an email of a person or several people that have uploaded the data about them and their relatives, the ones that they are aware of, into this resource. The ones from which I took the GEDmatch kit initially, it's the email dan@saint.org. And please note this name here, D. Bodenheimer, DB, and some additional ones such as JK, PB, and KK. Now, let's connect this logically so that the graph doesn't spread too much. There's a lot of things that we can do with this email just based on our standard functionality. So let's launch all of those transforms that it makes sense to use. The main thing here would be to get one of the accounts of this person on a social media platform, preferably Facebook or LinkedIn, of course. So we're already starting to get some idea about their digital footprint. And now let's look into this further and see if there are any connections with the people on the graph that we got from the initial GEDmatch kits. So by the description of, for instance, this person's LinkedIn profile that we got from the email dan@sane.org, we can see the general details such as he's CPO at Authentify Art, graduated from University of California, Santa Cruz, located supposedly in Del Mar, California, United States. Now we have a Facebook profile. And from that, we can get a more accurate idea of who they are connected to in real life. So at first, it would make sense, of course, to get relatives. But we will also go into the friends list, yes. And the reason that this method is called Get Visible Friends Fast is that we now have two separate methods for getting friends on Facebook. The first gives us the full list, and the second one just the ones that are visible. Also, we can go into more detail about this person by getting their posts and see who interacted with those posts. The same principles would, of course, be applicable to Twitter and LinkedIn, although to a lesser degree. And at least here we can see one person we can assume is a relative, which is Julie Bodenheimer. We can see Gail Jacobson Bodenheimer, as well as some additional people. Another thing that we can use is a phone number from the people entity. Because, and specifically for people, you can often get phone numbers of a person's, you can often get the people cards of a person's relatives or other people close to them. While I'm doing all those actions, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have at this moment. Either me or Dennis will gladly answer them. So as you can see, some of the people entities that we get from one of the phone numbers also give us not just Dan Bodenheimer, but several of the people here that we have seen previously on the part of the graph with the get match enrichment, such as Julie Kletzman Bodenheimer and Julie L. Bodenheimer. And the whole idea, as I mentioned previously, and I believe we've also forgot about the emails, is that we can pivot from one category of data into another one completely new for us previously. And we can see that all of those people are connected in terms of this graph to an address, Del Mar Scenic Parkway, Del Mar, California. And there is also another Peter Bodenheimer here, which we have seen as PB on this previous graph. Yes, to answer the questions that we have currently in the chat, I did not notice where the starting point was, what was the starting information, and what was the first transform. The starting point were a number of GetMatchKit entities that I got initially from the email, and the transform, there were several. So there was extract name and GetMatchLookup. So something that queries the source, GetMatch, an openly available ancestral genealogical database. How to create a social links account. Well, you can contact us through our sales email, and we can discuss whether you would be more interested in a solution as SL Pro for one of the desktop clients, either Maltigo or i2 or GammaUn, which does require an account. From where comes the data set of DNAs on which Maltigo can search, and how they are correlated with friends or people who have interacted with the person investigated. The data set of DNAs comes from a resource called GetMatch, which is also a subcategory of resources, as I mentioned previously. And how are they correlated with friends of people who interact with the person investigated? We can see some of their full names and some of their initials in the part of the graph that is concerned with GetMatch, and we can see some of those people after the enrichment of the digital footprint of this person. If we have Facebook ID of person, can we search his other social media profiles, etc.? Yes, that certainly is possible. You can either apply facial recognition or look for their presence on other social media platforms based on the entities, the different ones that we have here for social media. So it could be LinkedIn, it could be Instagram, it could be something else. I will be in Amsterdam in 2 months. Is there a way to come and meet the team and get a tour of SocialLink's office? Yes, sir, we can certainly discuss this, and we will email you after the webinar. And now we will go back to the slides. So those were the key points of how you can work with this data. So you can connect a person twice, create an overlap in terms of the connections that they have, which we can see in a DNA database, and the connections they have, as we can see, within their social media footprint and digital footprint in general. A bit about our products where this will be available. This will be available quite soon in the client version of SL Pro, which is a professional bundle combining methods for working with different kinds of sources. And this is a new category of sources for us. And of course, this will be available within SocialLink's box, our on-premise solution for large government organizations and enterprise level commercial organizations. A more curious thing here is that this is a category of data, biological data. This one is open source, but what could be particularly interesting for law enforcement and government customers that we have is the same principles would be applicable to working with biological data that they might have in their inner databases, and working with them in the same way by pivoting into social media and the digital footprint through the other standard methods commonly associated with us that we will have in SocialLink's box. Yes, so now I believe it's time for a brief Q&A session. Please ask us any questions and me and Dennis will gladly answer them. For those of you who would be interested to discuss this live, we will be participating in the Intelligence Support Systems Conference in Dubai just in a few days. And we will be talking about integrating DNA analysis into open source intelligence as well, along with some other topics. And if you would be interested to explore this functionality into more detail, as we have just briefly outlined the principles of working with it and how it can be used, you can book a demo by a link on our website, and we'll be glad to have a conversation with you about this. And we would just like to ask one more time if there are any questions at this moment. Denis, please tell us, do you have anything to add to the materials of the presentation we have just had?
Yeah, no.
And of course, this is something that you can work with in I2 Analyst Notebook, certainly, yes. Because the principles of working with the Analyst Notebook and Maltigo and any other graph-based solution is the same. Graph-based solutions can be specifically good for analyzing DNA data as well, as they're quite universal. Yes, so in case there aren't any more questions, as mentioned previously, we gladly invite you to a new conversation with us. Oh, and there's also a poll, I believe. So there are several questions. Whether you think the method of DNA profiling is applicable to your investigations, whether you would like to discuss this with us individually, and how many specialists in your organization are familiar with those methods and tools. So please vote on this one. Yes, Darko, it is indeed quite interesting and quite exciting to see the further developments of technology such as this. Yes, thank you, Jose. Great to hear that.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah, yes, Darko, certainly. Yes, thank you, Neil. Thank you, Emanuele. Yes, Darko, and a nice weekend to you as well, certainly. Yes, Asmadi, I was glad to see you here as well. Hope you're doing well. So that would be all for today. Thank you very much, and we wish you a great weekend. Goodbye.